Sometimes it's not the noise that hurts the most, it's the silence. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The silence of a wise man is more powerful than the words of a fool." Think about that for a second, my friends. That single truth can flip your entire perspective. Because the truth is, there's always a turning point, that exact moment when they realize the silence you gave them is not weakness, it's power. And that's when missing you doesn't just creep in lightly, it hits like a storm. Now, before we go deep into this, do me a quick favor. Press that like button, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and join this community of people who are choosing strength over chaos, peace over begging, and discipline over desperation. Trust me, you'll want to stay locked in for this one. Hey folks, imagine this. You walk into a room where a candle has been burning for hours. At first, nobody notices the flame. It's just there, quietly giving light. But the second it's blown out, the darkness feels overwhelming. That's you. When you were always there, always showing up, always handing out your energy, they barely noticed. But the moment you stepped back, the whole room changed. That's the silence they never saw coming. That's the absence that shakes their world more than your presence ever did. Here's the lie they told themselves. He'll always be there. They thought your replies were endless. They believed your calls would never stop. They convinced themselves your presence was replaceable, like background music that never runs out. But here's the truth, my friends. Scarcity creates value. And when your energy becomes rare, it becomes unforgettable. Epictetus once said, "Wealth is not having many possessions, but having few wants." Apply that to relationships. Your value is not in always giving, but in not needing. Think about a tree in the middle of a storm. Branches snap, leaves scatter, but the tree that stands firm becomes unforgettable. That's you when you stop reacting to every little test, when you stop explaining yourself 1,000 times, when you stop chasing. Folks, people don't remember the noise of the storm. They remember the strength of the tree that didn't break. Now, let me tell you why this matters. When you practice calm detachment, when you learn the art of restraint, something incredible happens. They start to feel the weight of your absence in ways they never expected. At first it's curiosity, then it becomes longing, and eventually it turns into regret. And all of that happens without you saying a single word. That's the beauty of Stoicism. It's not about controlling others. It's about mastering yourself. My friends, here's the fun part. They thought they were holding the remote control, but guess what? The batteries ran out. You're no longer dancing to their channel, you're broadcasting your own signal. And when they scroll through life expecting to find you there, all they find is silence. And that silence is louder than any "I miss you" text could ever be. So stay with me, because in this video we're going to uncover that exact turning point, the moment when your calm detachment shifts the entire game. You'll see why silence carries more weight than begging, why distance creates desire, and why walking away with dignity leaves the deepest imprint. And if this is already hitting home, I want you to type this in the comments right now. My silence is my power. Press that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and remember this: calm over chaos, always. Say it with me: calm over chaos. Type it below so the world sees it. Now let's get started, folks, because the turning point when they miss you most is closer than you think. Number 1. The silence they didn't expect. Silence is a source of great strength. That's what Lao Tzu said centuries ago, and my friends, that truth is still burning hotter than ever today, because when silence arrives, it doesn't knock. It doesn't ask permission. It just shows up, and it shakes the ground they're standing on. At first, they thought they had you figured out. They thought your presence was guaranteed, your attention was endless, your replies automatic. They believed you'd always be available like water from a faucet. Just turn the handle, and there you are. But here's the hard truth. When that faucet suddenly runs dry, they don't just notice the absence, they panic. Picture this, folks. Imagine living in a city where the sun rises every morning at 6 a.m. sharp. You don't even think about it. You don't wait for it. You assume it'll be there because it always has been. But what if one morning you wake up and the sun doesn't rise? The sky stays dark. Suddenly, the world feels unstable. Your mind races with questions. Your heart beats faster because what was once predictable is now gone. That's exactly what happens when your presence disappears from their life. You were their sunrise, consistent, warm, expected, and the moment that rhythm breaks, fear creeps in. At first, they try to lie to themselves. It doesn't matter. I don't care. They tell their friends they're fine, they distract themselves with noise, they even laugh it off like your absence is just a blip. But deep down, the silence gnaws at them. Because silence is not nothing, it's a mirror. And in that mirror, they see the cracks in their confidence. They thought they had the power. They thought they could walk away and you'd come chasing like always. But when the chase doesn't come, when you don't bite the bait, when you don't respond to the test, suddenly they're forced to face the one question they never wanted to ask. What if I've lost them? And that question, my friends, is a storm they can't control. Seneca once said, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality." That's exactly what floods their mind. Their imagination becomes their enemy. They replay old conversations, old routines, old habits. They scroll through their phone, looking for your name, expecting the notification that never comes. And every time the screen lights up without your message, the silence feels heavier. What was once quiet becomes thunder. Think about how powerful that is. They thought silence was weakness. They thought it meant you had nothing to say. But in reality, silence is presence. Silence is control. Silence is restraint. Anyone can react. Anyone can beg. Anyone can flood someone's phone with messages, hoping to win attention. But it takes real strength to do nothing, to sit in stillness while their mind races in circles. That's the essence of Stoicism. Epictetus said it best. No man is free who is not master of himself. And in this silence, you prove mastery. You show that you don't need to respond to every tug on your emotions. You're free because you're not chained to their validation anymore. Now, let's break one of the biggest lies they believed. They thought silence meant indifference. They thought it meant you didn't care. But here's the truth. They wouldn't feel the sting if your presence never mattered. They wouldn't feel the weight of your absence if you weren't once the anchor in their storm. That's the paradox. Your silence hurts because your presence carried value, and now that it's gone, they're forced to confront the reality they denied. You were never replaceable. Why is this so difficult for them to process? Because human beings crave certainty. We hate unanswered questions. We want to know where we stand, and your silence strips that away. It doesn't give them the comfort of clarity. It doesn't hand them the reassurance they were used to. It leaves them with the raw uncertainty of doubt. And here's where it gets powerful. Uncertainty breeds desire. What they can no longer predict, they begin to crave. What they no longer control, they begin to fear losing forever. Let's put it into another image, folks. Imagine a fisherman who throws his net into the water every single day and always pulls out fish. It becomes routine. He doesn't even celebrate the catch anymore because it's expected. But one day, he throws the net and pulls it up empty. Then again, empty. Suddenly, the water he once overlooked becomes mysterious, even intimidating. That's what happens when you stop being their guaranteed response, their automatic attention. They feel the emptiness in their net, and that emptiness unsettles them, and it only grows worse with time. At first, the silence feels like a small gap, something they think they can handle, but as the hours stretch into days, that gap becomes a canyon. And no matter how loud they try to fill their world with distractions, the echo of your absence bounces back louder. This is the turning point, the moment when silence shifts from being background noise to being the center of their thoughts. And you didn't do a thing to create it, you simply held your ground. But let me make this clear. This isn't about punishing them. This isn't about games. Stoicism isn't manipulation. It's discipline. It's about knowing that your energy is valuable, that your presence is not free, and that your peace comes before their expectations. By mastering yourself, you let the silence speak for you. And believe me, it speaks louder than any long paragraph ever could. So, my friends, when they sit there wondering why you haven't reacted, why you haven't replied, why you haven't rushed back to fix the distance, they're really facing a deeper truth. You no longer need them the way they thought you did. And that's the fear that keeps them awake at night. That's the shift they never saw coming. Here's where I want you to pause for a moment. Imagine yourself as the lighthouse in a storm. Ships crash, waves roar, the night is loud. But the lighthouse doesn't move. It doesn't chase the ships. It simply stands tall, steady, shining its light. And because of that steadiness, the ships can't ignore it. That's the power of silence. You don't have to run after anyone. You stand firm, and they'll feel the weight of your presence even more in your absence. And that's why this silence becomes the first real turning point when they miss you most, because they didn't expect it, they didn't prepare for it, they didn't believe it could exist, and now that it does, it shakes the foundation of the story they told themselves. So here's what I want you to do. Type these words in the comments right now. My silence is my strength. Show yourself. Show me. Show the world around you that you've chosen discipline over desperation. And stay with me, because in the next part, we're going even deeper into what happens when the routines they once took for granted start to disappear, and why that stings more than anything else. Calm over chaos, my friends. Write it below. Your silence is your power, and this is just the beginning. Number 2. The broken rhythm of routine. Order is heaven's first law. That's what Alexander Pope once wrote, and my friends, nothing exposes the truth of that statement more than routine. Human beings cling to patterns like lifelines. The smallest habits, the tiniest gestures, the daily rhythms, they give us a sense of control, a sense of stability. And when those patterns are suddenly ripped away, it doesn't just feel like absence, it feels like chaos. That's why the second great turning point comes not in the big moments, but in the little ones. The broken rhythm of routine. Think about it. Every symphony relies on rhythm. Imagine listening to your favorite song. The beat flows, the melody rises, and everything feels in harmony. But then, out of nowhere, the music cuts off mid-note. The silence that follows doesn't feel neutral. It feels like an earthquake. That's exactly what happens when your consistency disappears. They were dancing to the rhythm of your presence, tapping along to the predictable beat of your texts, your calls, your daily check-ins. And then one day, the music stops. At first, they tell themselves it's nothing. Maybe they're busy, maybe they'll call tomorrow. They shrug it off, trying to pretend the silence doesn't matter. But the truth, it rattles them, because it wasn't just a text. It was an anchor. It wasn't just a call. It was reassurance. It wasn't just routine. It was the comfort they didn't even realize they were leaning on. And now that comfort is gone. Let me ask you, folks, how many times have you brushed off a small routine only to realize later how much it mattered? Like the sound of a train that passes your house every night. You stop hearing it after a while, but the night it doesn't come through, you sit up in bed wondering what's wrong. That's what's happening in their mind. The routines they once dismissed as ordinary now scream in their absence. Here's the lie they believed, that the rhythm would last forever. They thought you'd always be the one to send the good morning message, the one to check in late at night, the one to bridge the silence whenever it appeared. They thought they had endless credits to spend on your time and your energy. But when you step back, when you no longer play conductor of the routine, the orchestra falls silent, and they don't know how to handle it. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, observe constantly that all things take place by change. Life itself is motion, constant transition, but for them, change feels like loss. And why? Because you've removed the safety net they took for granted. They used to expect your effort as if it was oxygen. They thought your constancy was free, automatic, infinite. Now they're forced to see it was a gift. And gifts, once removed, burn brighter in memory than in the moment. Folks, let's take another metaphor. Imagine drinking water every day from the same well. You don't question it, you don't appreciate it, you just assume it will always be there. But the day the well runs dry, suddenly that water becomes the most precious thing in the world. That's how your absence reshapes their perspective. What was once overlooked becomes unforgettable. Here's where the fear creeps in. They start to wonder, did I do something wrong? Did I push too hard? Did I take too much? The very routines that gave them comfort now become reminders of what they lost. And that unease grows heavier with every passing day. They scroll through their phone at night, looking for the familiar ping of your message. Nothing. They open their apps, expecting your name to pop up. Still nothing. And that silence, that broken rhythm, echoes louder than 1,000 words. But here's the power in this. You're not withholding to punish. You're not breaking routine out of revenge. You're simply reclaiming your energy. You've chosen to live in alignment with what the Stoics taught. To control only what is within your grasp. Your time, your attention, your presence. Epictetus said, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. By stepping back, you're not chasing their reaction. You're freeing yourself from the chains of their expectations. And that freedom unsettles them. And my friends, this is where the shift happens, because when they realize you're no longer pouring energy into the routines that kept them comfortable, they feel the weight of absence more than the joy of presence ever gave them. That's the irony. People don't always value what they have while they have it, but remove it, and suddenly its importance becomes undeniable. Picture them lying in bed, phone in hand, waiting for the buzz that never comes. Their mind replays old nights when your call came through like clockwork. They scroll back to old messages, rereading the words they once skimmed over casually. What they dismissed yesterday now feels priceless today. And that sting, that's the broken rhythm. So let me leave you with this. Don't fear stepping back. Don't fear the silence. Don't fear the end of routine, because it's in that empty space where your power grows. It's in the absence where your value multiplies. They may not admit it out loud, but the rhythm you broke has become the song they can't stop hearing in their head. If this is speaking to you, type this in the comments right now. My absence has value. Show yourself, show me, show the world around you that you understand this truth. Stay with me, because in the next part, we're going to uncover how that tiny spark of curiosity, why haven't they answered, turns into a heavy weight that they can't carry. And that, my friends, is where the silence truly starts to roar. Number 3, when curiosity turns heavy. Imagination is more powerful than knowledge. That was Albert Einstein's reminder to the world, and my friends, nothing proves that statement more than what happens when silence begins to stretch. At first, curiosity is light. It feels like a breeze, soft, passing, easy to ignore. They glance at their phone and think, strange, no reply yet. Maybe later. But curiosity, left unanswered, is like a snowball rolling downhill. It starts small, harmless. But with each turn, it gathers weight, speed, and force until it becomes an avalanche they can't stop. Picture it this way, folks. Imagine dropping a pebble into a calm lake. At first, it's just a small splash, nothing to notice, but then the ripples spread, wider and wider, touching everything in their path. That's curiosity. What begins as a tiny question, why haven't they responded yet, soon spreads into endless ripples across their mind. The silence you maintain becomes the water, and their imagination can't stop creating waves. Here's the truth. Human beings hate uncertainty. We would rather be told bad news than no news at all, because at least bad news gives closure. But silence leaves the mind free to invent 100 possibilities, and most of them hurt more than the truth ever could. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And this is exactly what plays out when your calm detachment collides with their expectation. While you are steady, grounded, focused on your life, they are spiraling inside the prison of their own thoughts. At first, they may brush it off. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they're sleeping. Maybe they'll text back tomorrow. But as the hours turn to days, that curiosity grows heavy. They scroll through their notifications, but the one name they're searching for never appears. They open your old conversations, rereading the messages they once skimmed. They wonder if something they said drove you away. And with every unanswered question, the silence feels louder. Let me ask you something, my friends. Have you ever noticed how the quietest room can suddenly feel unbearably loud when your mind is racing? That's what they're living through. The silence isn't just quiet anymore, it's deafening. Their imagination turns it into a megaphone, blasting doubt and fear. Have they moved on? Are they talking to someone else? Did I lose them forever? These questions loop in their head like a song stuck on repeat. And here's the catch. They have no way to turn it off. The lie they told themselves was this: they'll always be around. I know them. They'll come back like they always do. That lie made them confident, maybe even arrogant. But now, that confidence is crumbling. Because every time they look for you and don't find you, the foundation shakes harder. The comfort of certainty has been replaced by the discomfort of doubt. And doubt, my friends, is a seed that grows into obsession. Think about a locked door in a house. If it's open, no one cares. You walk past it without a thought. But the moment it's locked and you can't get inside, your mind fixates on it. What's in there? Why can't I enter? That's exactly what your silence does. When you were always available, they didn't think twice. But now that you've closed the door, they can't stop trying to peek through the keyhole. Here's the beauty of it. This isn't manipulation. You're not sitting there scheming ways to confuse them. You're not twisting knobs to play games. No, you're simply practicing self-control. You've chosen to put your energy into things that matter: your work, your health, your peace. Epictetus said it clearly: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength, and that's what you've done. You've taken your power back, and in doing so, you've forced them to wrestle with their own imagination. But why does this weigh so heavily on them? Because they're not used to it. They were used to certainty, used to comfort, used to you bridging the silence whenever a gap appeared. And now that you've stepped back, they feel something they can't handle: unpredictability. And unpredictability is the birthplace of fear. Now imagine them at night, phone in hand. They scroll endlessly, but it doesn't satisfy. They refresh their messages, but the screen stays blank. That once light curiosity now feels like a brick pressing on their chest. They toss and turn, restless, replaying every moment with you in their mind, trying to decode the silence you've created. They wonder if you're out with friends, if you've found someone new, if you've finally realized you don't need them at all. And those thoughts, though invisible, hit harder than any confrontation ever could. Folks, here's the paradox. They wanted control, but the moment they lost your attention, they lost control of themselves. Their imagination is now their enemy, painting pictures darker than reality, creating storms where there are none. And all you've done is remain still. This is where Stoicism shines brightest. While they spiral in doubt, you are steady in discipline. While they cling to what they can't control, you release it. While they suffer in imagination, you stand in reality. And that contrast is exactly what makes the silence so powerful. So let me leave you with this. Don't underestimate the weight of curiosity. It may begin small, but left unanswered. It becomes the turning point when missing you shifts from a light thought to a heavy burden they can't escape. Write this in the comments right now. My calm creates curiosity. Show me, show yourself, show the world around you that you understand the weight of silence. And stay with me, because next we're going to talk about the nighttime reckoning, the moment when the distractions of the day disappear and your absence becomes impossible to ignore. That, my friends, is when silence roars the loudest. Number 4. The nighttime reckoning. It is at night that faith is proved and fear is revealed. My friends, those words hit deep because they capture what truly happens when the sun goes down and the distractions fade away. During the day, people can hide behind activity. They bury themselves in work, chatter with friends, scroll endlessly through social feeds, drown themselves in noise. But when the world grows quiet, when the lights dim and the ceiling stares back at them, all the illusions they clung to in the daylight begin to crumble. And that's when the turning point cuts the deepest, the nighttime reckoning. Picture this. The clock strikes midnight. The phone is on the pillow next to them, glowing faintly in the dark. They check it once, twice, 3 times, refreshing notifications that never come. Their friends aren't messaging, the conversations are silent, and the one name they want to see remains absent. In that silence, their heart races. Thoughts they pushed away during the day now return with a vengeance. Doubts grow louder, fears multiply. The curiosity that felt like a whisper in the afternoon becomes a scream in the middle of the night. Seneca once said, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality." And my friends, this is the battlefield of imagination. Reality is simple. You've stepped back. You've chosen your peace. You've reclaimed your energy. But their imagination doesn't see that. Instead, it creates stories. Are you with someone else? Have you already moved on? Did they underestimate you so badly that you've finally risen above needing them? These stories play in their mind like a movie marathon, and every scene cuts deeper than the one before. The lie they told themselves during the day, "I'm fine, it doesn't matter, I don't care," falls apart in the dark, because at night there's no audience to impress, no friends to laugh with, no busyness to lean on. It's just them and their thoughts. And thoughts, my friends, can be crueler than any outside punishment. What they once dismissed as routine, your goodnight text, your late-night call, your voice notes sent when they couldn't sleep, now burn like fire in their memory. Those little habits they took for granted feel irreplaceable once they're gone. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine a house with a grandfather clock that chimes every hour. For years, you barely notice the sound. It becomes background noise. But one night, the clock stops. The silence is eerie. The absence of that small, familiar sound unsettles you more than you ever expected. That's how your absence feels in their nighttime reckoning. What they ignored for so long now screams because it's no longer there. And here's the paradox. They thought silence meant freedom. They thought walking away meant release. But in the silence of midnight, they discover the opposite. The more they try to silence their thoughts, the louder they become. The more they scroll to distract themselves, the more the emptiness rises. They realize they can mute the outside world, but they can't mute the echo inside their own mind. Meanwhile, your reality looks completely different. While they toss and turn, you rest steady. While they replay old conversations, you've already moved forward with your purpose. A Stoic man doesn't let emotions hijack his nights. He knows that peace comes from within, not from anyone else's attention. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. That's why you sleep well. You've revoked the power of their absence over your peace." But for them, the reckoning grows worse with time. They may open old photos, scroll through old chats, listen to old voice notes just to feel a trace of your presence. At first, it comforts them, but soon it torments them. Because those reminders don't bring you back. They only sharpen the reminder that you're gone. And here's the cruel irony. They miss you not because you begged for their attention, but because you stopped giving it so freely. My friends, this is why silence at night is so powerful, because it doesn't just create longing, it creates anxiety. It turns regret into a companion they can't shake off, and in that sleepless storm, they finally face the truth. The person they thought would always be there has stepped back. The routine they thought was endless has ended. The man they thought they had on a leash is now untouchable. And that realization doesn't just sting, it lingers. So here's what I want you to do. Type this in the comments right now. My peace is my power. Say it, write it, and own it. Show me, show yourself, show the world that you understand this truth, because while they battle the ghosts of imagination at midnight, you're the lighthouse standing firm, calm, steady, shining. And stay with me, because in the next part, we're going to uncover the comparisons they can't stop making. The haunting truth that no matter who they turn to, no one else measures up to your calm, disciplined presence. And that, my friends, is when the weight of your absence grows heavier than ever. Number 5. The comparison they can't escape. Value is most deeply felt in its absence. My friends, let that sink in. Because here's the hard truth, people rarely appreciate what they have while it's right in front of them. They convince themselves that presence is ordinary, that consistency is replaceable, that what is rare will somehow always be available, and then it's gone. And when it's gone, every attempt to replace it only highlights the weight of what was lost. This is the next turning point, the comparison they can't escape. Imagine this, folks. They sit across the table from someone new. The conversation flows at first, light, simple, filled with small talk. The other person is eager, leaning in, showering them with compliments, doing everything they can to win approval. On the surface, it looks perfect. But then the silence between words arrives, and in that silence, they feel the difference. The person across from them seems nervous, waiting desperately for their reaction, hanging on every glance. And right there, like a lightning bolt, a memory of you flashes in their mind. You never begged for attention. You never leaned in with desperation. Your calm presence carried more weight than 100 words. That contrast is sharp, and it stings. Here's the lie they believed, that your steadiness was boring, that your restraint meant lack of interest, that your silence meant weakness. But the lie crumbles the moment they compare you to others, because now they realize what they dismissed before was actually strength. They start to notice it everywhere, how others scramble for validation, how others can't hold their composure, how others reveal insecurity with every gesture. And against that backdrop, your discipline becomes unforgettable. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What is truly valuable is rare by nature," and now they are living that lesson in real time, because what you gave them, calm assurance, steady presence, quiet self-control, isn't common. It's not something they can just pick up with someone new, and once they see the difference, the comparison grows heavier every day. Think about it, my friends. You can eat 100 meals, but the one that nourished you best is the one your body craves. You can meet 100 faces, but the one that carried peace is the one your mind remembers. That's what your absence does. It plants a standard they can't lower again. Every time they encounter someone who falls short, your presence grows stronger in memory. Let me paint another metaphor for you. Imagine drinking water straight from a mountain spring, clean, crisp, refreshing. You take it for granted at first, but then you switch to bottled water filled with chemicals and artificial taste. Suddenly, you realize the difference. And no matter how many bottles you buy, nothing compares to the spring. That's how they feel when they try to replace you. Every new connection, every new interaction, every attempt to distract themselves only sharpens the memory of your calm. And here's where the frustration sets in, because comparison isn't something they choose. It's something that happens automatically. Every laugh with someone else feels weaker than the laugh they once shared with you. Every conversation feels forced compared to the ease they felt around you. And every attempt at closeness feels like a shadow of what they had before. The more they try to move forward, the more the past pulls them back. But here's the beauty, folks. You didn't do a thing to create this. You didn't scheme. You didn't manipulate. You didn't chase. You simply lived in alignment with Stoic discipline. You understood Epictetus' words. It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. You chose to step back with dignity. You chose not to beg, not to cling, not to demand. And that choice is exactly what makes you stand out in a sea of men who crumble under pressure. Now, let's talk about the fear this creates in them. Because once the comparison begins, it doesn't stop. It follows them into their nights, into their mornings, into every attempt at connection. They may smile in public, laugh with friends, even post pictures pretending they're unbothered. but deep inside they're haunted by the truth that no one else feels like you. And the more they realize it, the more the regret digs in. So let me say this clearly. This is the turning point when missing you becomes more than curiosity. It becomes a weight they carry daily, a mirror they can't look away from, and all of it is born out of one simple reality. You were rare, and rarity cannot be replaced. Here's what I want you to do right now. Type this in the comments. Rare value can't be replaced. Show yourself. Show me. Show the world that you understand this principle, because when you live with discipline, with calm, with restraint, you don't just create memories, you set a standard, and that standard, once felt, can never be forgotten. Stay with me, my friends, because in the next part, we're going to step even deeper into the mirror of their choices, the moment they look back on the times they dismissed you and realize those small decisions may have cost them more than they ever imagined. That's when regret turns sharp, and the silence they once ignored becomes impossible to escape. Number 6, the mirror of their choices. Every man is the sum of his choices. That's what Albert Camus once said. And my friends, nothing cuts sharper than realizing the choices we made yesterday are the very reasons for the pain we feel today. This is the next turning point, when they begin to replay their decisions, the moments they brushed you off, the times they dismissed your presence, and suddenly those small, casual choices don't look so small anymore. They look like mistakes, heavy mistakes, mistakes they can't undo. Picture this for a second. Imagine standing in front of a mirror that doesn't just show your reflection, it replays your past. Every shrug, every ignored message, every time they took your effort for granted. It plays back like a movie on loop. At first, they try to look away, but the harder they try, the more vivid the images become. That's what happens when silence holds up a mirror. It doesn't let them escape the truth. It forces them to see that the distance between you wasn't just created by chance, it was carved by their own choices. And here's the sting: they never thought those choices mattered. They believed you'd always be there, ready to patch things up, to keep the rhythm alive, to carry the weight of the connection, no matter how lightly they treated it. They thought they could delay, dismiss, or even push you aside, because in their mind, you would always circle back. That was the lie. And now, every quiet night, every moment of silence, every unanswered thought shatters that lie piece by piece. Marcus Aurelius once reminded us, "Let not your mind be distracted by what has happened in the past or what may happen in the future, but simply do what lies clearly at hand with justice and love." That's the difference between you and them. You don't live chained to regret. You don't drown in the what-ifs. You face the present with clarity. You move forward with discipline. But for them, the past has become a prison. They sit in that mirror, replaying the moments they thought meant nothing. And now, those moments weigh more than they can carry. Think about it, my friends. How many times do we overlook the smallest things until they're gone, like a bridge you cross every day without noticing, until the day it collapses and suddenly you realize it was holding up your entire journey? That's how your presence feels now. At the time, they brushed it off as ordinary, but in your absence, they see it as extraordinary. And here's where the fear creeps in, because once they see the mirror, once they recognize their role in creating the silence, they can't unsee it. They can't point the finger at anyone else. They can't say it just happened. Deep down, they know their dismissiveness, their arrogance, their false sense of control opened the door for you to step back. And the more they replay those decisions, the heavier the regret becomes. Let's give it another metaphor. Imagine dropping stones into a river. At first, the ripples are small, barely noticeable, but stone after stone, the current shifts, the flow changes, and one day you realize the river has been redirected entirely. That's how their choices built this moment. Little dismissals here, a careless shrug there, and suddenly they look up and you're no longer where you used to be. But here's the beauty of Stoicism. You didn't cling to that mirror. You didn't waste energy trying to convince them of their mistakes. You didn't beg them to see your worth. You knew what Epictetus taught. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. And in this, you've proven it. You don't want their validation anymore. You don't need their recognition. You've built your wealth in your self-control, in your calm, in your ability to move forward regardless of who notices. That's what makes this turning point so powerful, because while you walk freely, they're stuck staring into the mirror of their own decisions. While you move forward into growth, they circle back into regret. While you breathe peace, they choke on the weight of choices they can't undo. And here's the cruel irony. They once believed pulling away gave them power. They thought it proved control. But by stepping back without resistance, by refusing to chase, you revealed the deeper truth. Real power belongs to the one who doesn't need. And now, every memory of how they treated you differently, every moment they assumed you'd always return, every careless choice, it all becomes a chain. And the more they resist, the tighter it pulls. So here's what I want you to do, my friends. Type this in the comments right now. My choices create my freedom. Say it, write it, show it. Because unlike them, you're not trapped by the past. You're shaping your present with discipline. You're carving your future with clarity. And that's why you win. Stay with me, because in the next part, we're going to uncover something even sharper, the return of respect. The moment when your distance, your silence, your discipline forces them to see you not as weak, not as needy, but as someone rare, someone grounded, someone they underestimated. And when that respect returns, the missing turns into something they can't deny. Number 7. The return of respect. Respect is earned by conduct, not demanded by words. My friends, remember that truth, because it defines this next turning point, the moment your silence and discipline don't just create longing, but something far deeper. Respect. In the beginning, they didn't respect your restraint. They mistook it for weakness. They thought your patience meant passivity, your consistency meant predictability, your calm meant lack of strength. They believed you'd always bend, always chase, always hand over your attention, no matter how they treated it. That was the story they told themselves to feel in control. But here's the beauty of silence. It rewrites the story, slowly. Without arguments, without speeches, without explanations, your distance begins to carve a new image. An image of a person who doesn't beg, who doesn't crawl, who doesn't fall apart when tested. And that image, my friends, demands respect. Imagine a tree standing in a storm. Other trees bend, branches snap, leaves scatter. But this one, it holds. Not because it shouts, not because it tries to prove its strength, but because its roots run deep. That's you. They look at you now and realize they underestimated those roots. They thought you would collapse under the weight of distance, but instead you've stood firmer, calmer, stronger. And in that realization, the seed of respect begins to grow again. At first, they try to dismiss it. They're just pretending. They'll crack soon. They convince themselves it's temporary. But day after day, week after week, you remain steady. You don't rush back. You don't break your discipline. You don't hand over your energy like before. And slowly, their dismissal turns into admiration, silent, unspoken, maybe even hidden, but it's there. because nothing commands respect more than self-control. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's what you embody now. You're not waiting on their validation to be whole. You're not controlled by their responses or their silence. You're governed by your own principles, your own peace. And that, my friends, is rare. In a world where most people chase approval like oxygen, your refusal to need it makes you unforgettable. Let's be honest. Respect always comes full circle. They may have laughed at your discipline before. They may have thought your calm was dull, your silence unnecessary. But now, in your absence, those very qualities look rare. They scroll through old messages, and the tone they once brushed aside now feels thoughtful. They remember moments where you didn't react emotionally, and what once seemed frustrating now feels powerful. They compare you to others who scramble for attention, and suddenly your restraint becomes magnetic. Think about a room full of voices. Everyone is talking, everyone is shouting, everyone is trying to be heard. But then there's one person, quiet, calm, steady. Without even speaking, they draw attention because their silence sets them apart. That's the kind of respect your distance builds. You don't fight for the spotlight, yet you become the one they can't stop noticing. And here's the irony that cuts them deepest. By walking away, you've become the very person they now wish they hadn't overlooked. The version of you that refused to crawl back, that chose dignity over desperation, is far more attractive than the one they thought they controlled. They may never say it out loud, but in their private thoughts, in their restless nights, in the quiet moments when memory sneaks in, they respect you now more than ever. This is the turning point, my friends, because missing you isn't just about wanting you back. It's about recognizing the value they failed to see before. And when respect returns, it brings with it a deeper ache. Because they now know they lost not just someone who cared, but someone who stood rooted in strength. So here's what I want you to take away. Respect isn't demanded by begging, it's not secured by chasing, and it's never built by over-explaining yourself. It's forged in silence, in boundaries, in discipline. It's the quiet force of someone who knows their worth and refuses to lower it. And now, as we close this final point, let me give you your call to action. If this message struck a chord with you, if it gave you clarity, then do me this favor. Hit that like button right now. Subscribe if you haven't already, because this is just the beginning of the journey we're building together. And drop a comment below with these words: respect follows discipline. Write it for yourself, write it for me, and write it so the world around you sees it too. Because in the end, my friends, it's not the one who shouts the loudest who commands respect. It's the one who stands calmest in the storm. That's your power, that's your legacy, and that's why they'll never forget you.